Welcome to the Boom Project Book YouTube channel. I am Kimberly Crum, and my co-editor is Bonnie Omer Johnson. And we have edited a wonderful book called The Boom Project, Voices of a Generation. And you can see that behind Bonnie's head on the screen. Yes, there it is. Now, what that is a book of prose and poetry by writers who live or have lived along the Ohio River. We are all baby boomers, born between 1946 and 1964. Yes, and sometimes we like to forget that, like I just did, but we're proud of being boomers and in this book together. Today we're really happy to introduce Don Krieger, who's a poet from Pittsburgh. And you'll note that the scene behind him looks nothing like Pittsburgh. And he might tell us about it or not. Let me tell you a little bit about Don. He's a biomedical researcher whose focus is the electric activity within the brain. He is author of the 2020 hybrid collection Discovery by Cyberwit. I love the name of that journal or publisher. The 2022 hybrid chapbook, When Danger is Past, Who Remembers, published by Milk and Cake Press. A 2020 Pushcart nominee, and a 2020 Creative Nonfiction Foundation Science as Story Fellow. His work has appeared in an American Journal of Nursing, Neurology, the Seneca Review, the Asahi Shimbun, the Blue Nib, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and others, and has been translated into Farsi, Greek, Italian, German, and Turkish. Don, have I left anything out there that you want to add?
No, it's very generous of you to read it.
Okay, well, we're glad to do it. You've published quite a bit, don't you think, Bonnie?
Definitely. In fact, I'm very impressed by the long list of publications that you have even on your website. Tell us how to reach your website.
Oh, it's donspoetrypage.com.
Okay, donspoetrypage.com, and I suggest you take a look at it to know more about Don and read more of his poetry and see his list of publications. Do you have a theory or a practice when you are thinking of publishing? I was very impressed by the publications you have.
The versatility, I think, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So in the meshing of science and literature, I find that intriguing as well.
Yes, thank you, Kim.
Well, there's two things there, versatility and publishing, right? Mm-hmm. The versatility thing is I have a number of interests, and what originally drove me to write was my issues. I have issues. And a lot of poetry comes out of pain.
Yeah.
And when I read the news, I get inspired to write. I don't get inspired very much by prompts, your standard prompts, but the news definitely does it for me. The thing is that writing about my issues, that's for me. Like, it's for me to confront stuff that I don't really want to confront. But there's an added thing in putting it out there. In one of the things that does is it makes it clear that the hardest part of understanding yourself is actually facing it yourself. If you can do that, it's no big deal really to show it to somebody else. The other side of the coin is when writing is to communicate. I think that's very important. And I think that an important corollary of that is that you shouldn't have to get into my head in order to understand my stuff. So one of the questions you asked had to do with what's highest on your list for writing. Accessibility is at the top of my list. I want my stuff to be understood. And I want it to be out there. I write it to put it out there. And I don't care very much where it goes. That's the secret of publishing. Like if there's an open door, then walk through the open door.
Oh, gosh.
So the publications, I haven't published anything in poetry or, New England Review, or although I've sent a few things. I send stuff to Agni regularly because I like Agni. They've never taken anything, which is their loss. But the real issue is I want my stuff to be seen. So it's best if it's published electronically.
Yeah.
Because then it's accessible.
Yeah.
But what you can do is if you want to put something out there, you can just make a recording and put it on YouTube.
That's like
And
we're
then-
doing now.
Yeah. And
Okay.
anyway, that's the sort of secret. I find I look for places that have open doors for my work, which is definitely not every place because a lot of people don't like my stuff. But
If there's a door, or if there's an open door, walk through it. I'm writing these things down. These are gems, Don. These are
I
gems.
did the
Don't you think,
same
Don?
thing.
Yeah. That's very good. Well, why don't you read a few poems to us of your choice? Have you got some that you'd like to read? I know you pointed one out to us.
Yes. Well, I'm going to read Long Time Coming, which was the poem that you took for the Boom Project, and I was proud that you did. Long time coming. The house fires were always in Colored Town. Dad called them less fortunate. We were cold and hungry too, but different. We were meant for college. The missile crisis came. Castro had nukes. Bombers flew over every few minutes. Convoys ran Dixie Highway for weeks, so it was hard crossing to school. We had no basement for shelter. I dug a hole in the yard one time. It filled with seawater. We were drilled in class, marched to the closet to cower. When Nixon got in, I was terrified, thought he might use nukes in Vietnam, burn everything clean.
Wow. Amazing. I remember how much I loved that the first time I read it, and it's even better to hear. What you just read, Don, reminds me of how important writing poetry is to posterity. There's a voice there who's describing a time that may not exist in the same way again. And so by virtue of an accident, you become historical.
Yeah, there's a story there too.
Okay.
An interesting one. Yeah.
Yes.
You mentioned, when I sent it, there was one issue that you had with the poem. Where is it now? I was pulling up another one. yeah, I dug a hole in the yard one time that filled with seawater. That's the thing about Florida, you know, like I lived like a block and a half from the inland waterway in a really poor area, but it was a long time ago and there weren't that many people in West Palm Beach, which is where I grew up. And if you dug a hole a few feet deep, it filled up with seawater. I mean, it was just seawater. It wasn't just salt water, it was seawater. And that's because Florida's coral covered with sand, at least that part of it. The other thing is that, you know, I was 14 when the Cuban Missile Crisis happened, and I was freaked out enough to want to know why we didn't have a basement. You know, because the trucks were going by with it and the airplanes were flying over. I mean, it was for real, even to a teenager. But the interesting thing about dealing with the editor, I'm going to read this other poem where it's one of the first poems I wrote. I sent it to the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and because it's about a local thing and local history in Pittsburgh. And the poetry reader for the Post-Gazette was Lori Jackiella. It's a very, very fine writer with a very good sense of humor. If you ever have a chance, her stuff is worth reading. Lori Jackiella, LoriJakiela. And you know, I sent her this piece and she had some critical comments. And we just sort of, like, I took it wrong.
Oh.
And you know, it became kind of an argument, and she ended up not publishing it because I wouldn't make the changes that she suggested. But in the end, I made the changes she suggested and published it elsewhere. And it was one of the really good lessons for me early on, you know, and let me read it to you.
The lesson of listening to an editor, or what was the lesson?
Well, it was more than that. It turned out it was the lesson of understanding what it means to be a white man.
Oh, okay.
You know, it's the arrogance and you know, fragility, the fragility that goes with the arrogance. You know, like I was telling you before, if I don't think, I say the wrong things.
Okay.
And I say the wrong things because I'm a sexist and I'm a racist, because I've swum in those waters all my life. And even though I'm old and I know that stuff's in me, I haven't really been able to get rid of it. And I don't think I'm that different from other people. I mean, I grew up in the South, in a segregated, you know, the segregated South, but I would have been a sexist anyway. That wouldn't have mattered.
We're so glad we invited you.
Anyway, here's this poem. Our dead are different from yours. 30 years ago, construction halted on I-279. Down from Penn Brewery and North Catholic, bones were found where Veckley Church had stood. 727 dead were sifted from the earth and cataloged, while backhoes, pavers, politicians, and lawyers stood by. The Veckley remains were separated for burial and laid with a single marker. Present were scientists, reporters, and Dorothy Davies, baptized at Veckley Church 80 years before. No living relative was ever found, but the Veckley dead were on protected ground and respected. Last fall, the Standing Rock Sioux found sacred ground on the Dakota Access Pipeline path. Now their dead lie pulverized beneath an easement and 30-inch pipe cradled in cement.
Wow.
Wow. Wow. Is that two stanzas?
It's 3.
3. Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us what you changed from the original that you
I removed a bunch of stuff from the end.
Okay.
I have it somewhere, but I haven't looked at it for a long time.
Well, Bonnie, do you have a question?
No, but I would say the ending to that is powerful as it is. I'm not sure what you had, but that was very powerful. And I can see in the 2 that you have read some ties to news happenings. I noticed that in some of the other poetry that you have written, that you speak about those things that come out in the news that sort of showcase some of the problems that we as a white society have contributed to, if not perpetrated, on those that are not of our white supremacist heritage. And I appreciate that. I think that makes the work important. And I think you're also doing a good job to help us all become more sensitive and aware that we aren't the only people who exist. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I think, the less is more thing, and I didn't see the first version, and I would never even suggest looking at a poem and saying anything about it, but it seems like what strikes me about that poem as a listener is that it's not making a judgment. It's giving us the scenes of these 2 mass graves. And then we make the judgment as a reader. And I think that's what I like that, because it leaves you with sort of an empty feeling. What's the last line?
What did I do with it?
Oh, he took it down. I'm
No,
being
it's
tricky here. You're doing
No,
well,
it's okay.
Don. Mhm.
The last line is, now their dead lie pulverized beneath an easement and 30-inch pipe cradled in cement.
That's so effective. Wow. That's so, don't you think, Bonnie? It's
Oh,
like
definitely. Absolutely.
perfect last line.
Yes.
Mhm.
Because it points out the difference in the way the 2 mass graves were handled. The Beckley family and these indigenous people, that found.
Yeah.
It's just very moving if you think about it. Can you read us another one? We are enjoying this and we're ready to hear more.
Okay, here's one from the new manuscript. When danger is past, who remembers? We could have been better. 1 in 1,000 Black men in America can expect to be killed by police. Edwards et al., Proceedings of the National Academy of Science, 2019. I drove to Goshen one of those strange spring days. The air conditioner worked sometimes just hot air. A bad compressor leaking Freon. Someone at work asked, isn't that an element? Somebody else, you could save the money till next spring. He buys organic, biodegradable trash bags, but no clue. Maybe when danger is past, even worldwide, no one knows. And me, I worked in rocket science, then half my life with neurosurgeons, And I know that banning Freon prevented pandemic skin cancer, got it fixed right away. I woke to the governor's stay-at-home order, drove the turnpike anyway. Each cop we passed, and there were many. I thought of my white Subaru and my skin like 1,000 times before. I thought we still use the old stuff, regulated, captured, recycled, but no, the new stuff, no chlorine, no worries. Still, it is a greenhouse gas. The old stuff was too. Maybe that's a good thing though, a reminder. We could do better sooner, even when we don't want to.
Wow.
Mhm.
Whoa. Bonnie said she actually read that, right, on the
I
website?
did. I have read that one.
Yeah, yeah, she reacted. There's a lot in there. There's the Freon preventing skin cancer. There's the police relationship with Black men. There's you. I like the white guy in the white Subaru. It's a very monochromatic kind of image. And the we can do better. So it was about climate change, but it was about and the pandemic and other stuff, right? All of that other stuff.
It's all jumbled together, right?
Yeah.
But that's the thing about creative writing, either poetry or creative nonfiction, if you will, or memoir. It's I was thinking about this morning because I was thinking about the interview. In the old days when we were kids and we were in math class, you had these word problems. And there were always these facts that they gave you that had nothing to do with the word problem. And, it was like, a big part of solving them was figuring out what you needed and what you could just forget about.
Right.
But in a poem or in a piece of creative writing like this, the idea is to put stuff in there that resonates.
Yeah.
Like this stuff is all happening and there's something about it that makes it all go together. And there's a key there in the end, like, in something that works, you want it to sort of come together at the end in some way. And in my case, I want it to have impact. I want people to be moved. And I want people to recognize the truth of it, whatever it is. We could do better, even when we don't want to. It's like, I'm not making it hard, like.
Yeah, we could do better. Yeah, that's not really a high standard to say we could do better. Yeah. Have you gotten responses from people about this poem since you published it?
This one actually, I don't think in this form it's been published. A piece of it was published under the title Strange Days. And
that captures it.
and Strange Days had the same epigraph, and it just had the section, I woke to the governor's stay-at-home order, drove the turnpike anyway, that part, and ending with, I thought of my white Subaru and my skin like 1,000 times before. That poem is what was nominated for a Pushcart.
Oh.
By the Origami Poetry Project, which is a wonderful little project. It's worth looking at. They publish a few of these tiny little books. They're folded out of a single sheet of paper.
Oh.
And they're very, very nice, very nice. And it's free, you can print them and then just fold them up. And they liked mine. the
Oh.
one that I gave them.
So do they give you instructions on how to fold them up?
Yeah. It's on the website.
Oh, so it's creativity for creative people.
Yeah, it's really good. It's a really good publisher, I think.
Oh,
Really unusual and very good.
that's wonderful. Well, I'm curious, what kind of shape did your poem fold into?
Well, actually, this is one of, I think, 4 or 5 poems that each one was just on its own page.
Okay.
And the pages are small. The pages are, I think, a quarter or an eighth of the size of the book, of a sheet of paper.
Neat.
I should have brought one so you could see it.
Oh, it's all right. We have good imaginations. Very nice. I also, the other thing is, when danger is past, who remembers? I think that is the most evocative title I've heard in a long time. And very relevant to these strange days.
Yeah, well, actually, the book has 3 sections. That's the name of the first section in the major section. And then the second section is called The Big Lie.
Oh.
And the third section is called When Danger is Present.
Okay. Okay, wow. We understand the thematic organization anyhow, right?
Yeah, well, actually, maybe I'll read you one from The Big Lie.
Okay.
If that's okay.
Yes. Okay.
The Big Lie is it's a folio it's a collection of 4 pieces, and they're linked. The first section, When Danger is Past, Who Remembers, is 17 linked pieces. It's essentially a single lyric essay. And what I read you was the last piece in the 17. The Big Lie begins with just an introduction: no greater danger, no greater betrayal. And oh yeah, I'm going to screen share this. You'll like this. How can you see?
I see. Our dead are different from yours, and in the beginning.
Oh, okay, wait, I did the wrong thing here.
That's
Sorry.
all right. Those both look interesting, by the way.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
It must be nice to be able to screen share published pieces. Interesting.
In the beginning, there are no slaves. Anyone that sets foot here becomes free. Men and women are equal before the law. Article 19, Pinochet's Constitution. And what you're looking at is the signature page of the US Constitution. Our fathers conceived America in war and a sweet promise. All men are equal. 11 years later, at full term, with a quill dipped in iron gall ink, they aborted their oath to the majority, to enslaved people, the indigenous, and the unmale. Even Chile's tyrant did better.
Wow. Wow. That is amazing. Bonnie, do you have a comment?
Yes, I'm even trying to write down the first line. It's just, it really, again, is very convicting of the group of us that wanted to exclude others or wanted to exploit others. And it, in a very succinct manner, shows how far we've come from the original intent of settling this country. And probably some of that, well, undoubtedly some of that has created some of the repercussions that we're now dealing with. But you so astutely capsulated that. It's very lovely and definitely impactful.
Yeah, it was also a pleasant history lesson. I mean, it was not, the information is not pleasant, but the lesson was there in few words. And I loved with a quill dipped in iron gall ink. I didn't even know there was such a thing, but the whole gall of it, I thought, wow, what an opportunity that is for a poet. They had the gall to do that.
Yeah, that's one of those lucky things. That's the kind of ink that they use. That's what it was called, iron gall ink, and that's resonance, right? I mean, it's a detail that resonates in a particular way.
Definitely.
That the big lie, of course, is America.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Declaration of Independence was propaganda in the end, and it was discarded 11 years after it was written, because that stuff was not put into the Constitution, which was where the rubber met the road.
So another, all men, meaning hopefully generically everyone,
but not even all men
are created equal. That's just the preamble to the Constitution. It's not the Constitution. That's what you're saying.
All men are created equals in the Declaration of Independence.
Oh, the Declaration of Independence, yeah.
Right, it's just propaganda.
Ah. Okay.
That's the thing. America is a lie, a big lie. And it's the model for, the bigger the lie, the easier it gets, you can put it across.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been perpetrated that way, no matter what the original intention was. It's been used as propaganda since that time.
It was propaganda then too.
Mhm.
Obviously, I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so ugly. Anyway, one of the other characteristics of my poetry and my other writing is undeniable truth.
Okay.
The idea is what I want to do is, as Bonnie, you said, I want to present a collection of things, and there's not that many ways to put it together where you can miss the point. And the things that are there are true, and the end of the story is also true. I mean, I want to communicate, and I want what I write to have to move people.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
One of the questions that you raised, I forget how you put it, but do you think that poetry can change things, or writing can change things? And propaganda is writing.
Oh, it is.
And
writing is propaganda.
The people who write speeches for the president and for other politicians, some of them are really great writers. I mean, Pat Buchanan, for instance, is an extraordinarily gifted writer. It's just that he's evil. And a lot of people who create propaganda are. The thing about poetry is it's important to recognize that, I mean, the main people who get affected by poetry are people who read it, other poets, individuals, the person who wrote it. But every once in a while, something comes along which affects a lot of people, like Amanda Gorman's poetry.
Oh, yeah.
And there are others too, because of the platform that she had. You know, she had a voice that was amplified so that certainly at least tens of millions heard it, probably a lot more.
Well, hopefully our YouTube channel is going to reach tens of millions as well.
That would be great. Well, I don't know. You may be best then to not put this particular.
Oh no, we're
recording up.
definitely putting it up. Oh yes, yes. No, we're not censoring. But my response, I have two responses to that. One is that I think when I'm writing memoir, you made me think, which is a good thing. When I write memoir, I'm casting myself in the best possible light, not as Pollyanna, but as somebody who's trying her best and has some flaws, but I'm not putting in the real stuff. You avoid the real stuff partly because it's personal, right? Which of course is the whole point of memoir, one might argue. The other thing I was thinking is that poetry, of all the literary forms, should make us feel uncomfortable because it's challenging truths that we hold dear or not. And that is part of it. And I think if poetry just is about rainbows and butterflies and little babies, it doesn't change us at all. You know, it's pablum. It's not what we need. I think that's the power of poetry for me as a listener is what it does to me inside.
And I would just add one thing to that. For the person who is intentionally trying to become a better form of humanity or contribute something to humanity, that's the kind of poetry that leads the reader with those intentions to do so. And that's why it's important. Yeah. That's one of the reasons it's really important.
The thing you said, Kim, about memoir and, not putting in certain things. And one thing you can do is when you write, nobody's going to see what you write.
Yeah, that's probably true.
It might be worthwhile to just put it in.
Right.
And see what, even if you end up not leaving it in, at least you saw it,
Correct.
which, it's like that's what I was talking about at the beginning. It's like, the stuff that I don't want to go there today because I don't want to make myself upset, but because my stuff always works for me. But there's value in that. And oftentimes, actually with my stuff, the stuff that I put in there that was the hardest for me to put there, that was the most important for me to publish.
I think that's true.
I have one for you.
All right. Yeah. Like I said, this is organic, right, Bonnie?
Yes.
Yeah. Let me find it. It's in a section called, I thought it was there, but it isn't. Oh, here. Yeah, it is. It's in a section called of discovery, called To Save a Life in Sickness and in Health. That's the title of the section. And the section is introduced with a haiku, which was published in the Asahi Shimbun, which is the largest English language newspaper in Japan. Here's the introductory haiku. Surprise, each morning I draw a breath. And here's the poem. Bob and Autumn. Autumn's talent brought them to Pittsburgh. She ran the seizure unit at McGee. It was Bob's idea that we might work together. She died just after the Boston bombing. Bob's son had been there. He was on crutches at the viewing. A line of us greeted Bob. When he saw me, he burst into tears. Bob was arrested 2 months later. He killed Autumn with cyanide. My wife is gone too. Her $25,000 per diem ended with morphine on my consent. They billed $500,000, then sent me a notice. We forgive your debt. You don't owe a thing. Bob got life without parole. I'm in love again. I know there's a difference between us. I haven't found what that is.
Wow.
Wow. Wow. That suggests an entire book. But wow. That's something. So does that relate, Don, to what you were saying, is write the real stuff and you'll like it better?
Well, it's, you know, the real stuff is what's most worth communicating.
Mhm, mhm.
There's a beauty to it, even when it's ugly. And this is certainly ugly.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Do you think it's because it is real truth?
It's real.
And real truth is probably the most beautiful aspect of writing, regardless of its genre. It's just a question I have. I don't have the answer.
We have a guest here for a moment, and I let her in because I think this is perfect.
I think real is what people want to read. Real is what moves people. The truth, you know, it's undeniable. And when it, you know, when it's personal, it's even less, it's even more undeniable. That's why people read stuff like this. And this turns out to be real. I mean, this was in the news.
Wow, that's wonderful. I mean, that's
Poignant.
Exactly.
so. I let Marsha Bronstein in because you said she might be here, and because I think she's part of this poem.
No.
No?
No.
Oh, no.
This was before.
Okay. Sorry. Marsha, do you want to show your face and say hello? There she is. Oh.
At the airport.
I'm in the Aspen airport.
Oh, well, good. You
So,
wanted.
yeah, can't really
Okay.
see my face, but thank you for including me.
Sure. I think Don wanted you here. I think we're at the end of the interview pretty much. So we have, I think, time for one more poem, Don.
Okay. I'm going to read you another poem titled In the Beginning. Where is it?
I saw that earlier on your screen share. I did.
I know where it is, yeah. In the beginning, Lot's wife died nameless, not because she looked back, but for remembering. In a sweet vision, I live naked, small trees wide spaced, warm shade, rich with apricots, a white beach in view, gentle surf, a dark squall rushing across the water, a walled colossus to the south, massive piers, men of all shades at labor, oars and sails, slanted ships, long and low, bilge and shackles, babble. The towers at city center in flames, smoke and harbor stench, billowing silver in the sun. I have always longed to live simply in an orchard, figs and cedar, olives and almonds, ladders and baskets, gloves and fresh bread, each day time stretching to the evening cool. So many remember their past lives as princes. Like them, I long for Eden, where tyranny and forgetting were new.
Oh my gosh. Oh, Bonnie, comment. You want to comment first?
I almost need to take a moment of reverence, but,
Yes.
but that was just incredible. Thank you.
Yeah. That's one to be read and read again. Whoa. And so many images. What inspired you to write that?
That picture behind me,
Oh,
to my right is the Point Diablo nuclear power plant. So you can see the power plant off in the distance. And for me, that resonates with, that picture resonated with Babel and with all the things that I associate with Babel in this poem.
so that was the poem you said before we got started. That was a photograph that inspired
Right.
the poem.
Mm.
Yes. Powerful. Powerful.
You know, I just want to correct myself. In that previous poem, Bob and Autumn, Marcia actually is in that poem. There's a line in there, I'm in love again.
Yes, that's what I thought. Yeah.
Don, is there anything that you are not normally asked in an interview? Anything that you would wish to say about your poems or your process, just so you have a chance to say them? We'd like to hear that.
Well, I think poems and other creative writing need to be accessible. I think that's important. And when I read stuff that isn't accessible, I put it down. Like, I don't feel like I should have to get into the poet's head or be a genius to understand their stuff. Like, I'm not going to do it. I just won't do it. I mean, some people really like that stuff, and that's fine. But
Yeah, I think I would agree.
I think that this thing about poetry being important, a lot of people talk about that these days because a lot of poets have gotten a lot out of it for themselves, either out of their own writing and out of reading others. And I think that's all good. But it takes something more than that to move the world. I mean, I'm not optimistic about the world. I write about the world often, and I've published a number of things about it. And I don't see anything that's really pushing back against the madness. But I think it's worth trying. And one thing that we can do is we can write.
Yes.
And even if it helps only us or us and maybe somebody else, that's something important and worth doing.
Okay, you're so eloquent. You make there are so many one-liners and bumper stickers and epigraphs in this interview that I wish I could have recorded all. Now, we do ask people to come up with 6 words that describes their writing experience or their writing philosophy. And you've given us a bunch of those already, but we're wondering if you have 5 or 6 words that you would share with us.
Yeah, sure. This is something I wrote down.
I think, I think from knowing you that that you're the kind of person who always does his assignment. And Marcia would probably agree. So go ahead and give us your sentence.
Well, number 1 is accessibility.
Mhm.
Number 2 is undeniable truth. Number 3 is non-intrusive language. Number 4 is narrative. And number 5 is concision.
Ah, that's wonderful. That's like the poet's guide to what you need to how you should examine your poem. Is it accessible? Is there non-intrusive language? Is there concision, truth? And what was the other undeniable? Was that the other one?
Undeniable truth.
Undeniable truth. Oh, there you go.
That's huge.
You did a lot of that today. Undeniable truth and accessibility. So we thank you so much for this. And Bonnie, I want you to offer some final comments as well.
Well, I want to thank you again for your time and tell you that it was certainly our pleasure to have you and for you to share so generously with your writing and your thoughts. And it's been very inspirational. It's been very thought-provoking. And I look forward to reading more of your work and following
Yes.
you from here on out. I think we feel like that the writers in the Boom Project are all part of a larger family that we helped birth. That sounds a little lofty, but we kind of look after you. We are delighted in your success, much as we would be any of our own children. So thank you so much.
And we didn't birth the writers so much because we're all we did birth the community, and that's been the biggest surprise for Bonnie and me, is that it's become a community of people who are keeping track of each other now. And we feel like we can come to Pittsburgh, where you live, or other cities, Cincinnati, Florence, Kentucky, Evansville, and other places, and we have friends there. And that's pretty amazing.
You definitely have a friend in Pittsburgh.
Oh, well, thank you. And we're glad we found, we were able to open a door and you stepped in.
Yeah.
That's
Yes,
kind of
and thank you for that.
That's a great lesson for
very simple but profound advice.
Uh-huh.
we could all take advantage of that.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes as we age, we kind of avoid that at times, thinking, well, maybe we don't belong, as it were. And
I'm jumping through doors or windows, whatever's open.
I'm trying it as well.
You do it really well, Bonnie. You do. She says these things, the woman's, she's a jumper for sure. So anyhow, we're really glad to have you. Stay up for a couple minutes after I end this recording of the Boom Project book YouTube channel, based on the actual print book, which you can find at theboomprojectbook.com or on any online venue near you. And thank you so much, Don, for being here, and to Bonnie, my partner, and to Marcia for her visit.